Hi, this is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse, and you're listening to the latest episode of Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. It's the spin-off series of the Talkhouse podcast, where I talk to filmmakers, musicians, comedians, and writers, and ask them questions they've never heard before in an interview, in an effort to discover a different side of them and understand them better. Today, my guest is writer-director Goran Stolevski. I first got to know of Goran and his work in 2023 through his second feature, Of An Age. A tender, poignant, deeply compassionate portrait of the pains of growing up. It focuses on a closeted 18-year-old in Melbourne, Australia, who over the course of one night meets and connects with the older brother of his high school best friend. I was really struck by the film and invited Goran to write a personal essay for Talkhouse. Houses I Lived In, the resulting piece that he wrote, is about his teenage years as a newly arrived Macedonian immigrant in Australia and the resilience he developed at that time, which carried him through to finally becoming a filmmaker. The following year, I saw Stolevski's next feature, Housekeeping for Beginners, a profoundly sad but also vibrant and funny film about the occupants of a kind of informal halfway house for queer youth in the Macedonian capital of Skopje, and the challenges they face when one of the two women who own the house dies. After being wowed by that movie, I went back to watch Stolevski's debut feature, You Won't Be Alone, a Balkan-set 19th century folktale about a young girl taken by a wolf eateress or witch. It follows her as she assumes different forms, searching for her place in the world. The film is visually stunning, compellingly told, and feels simultaneously old-fashioned and decidedly modern. Stolevski's three features are each very distinct in style, narrative, feel, sense of place, etc., but there's a remarkable humanity and emotional intelligence that connects them as they play with such shared themes as rupture, chosen family, the search for home, and pursuit of self-identity. I struggle to think of any filmmaker in recent memory who's come out the gate like this with three beautifully crafted films in a row, with a voice that feels so specific and developed. I really enjoyed interacting with Stolevski when he wrote for Talkhouse, and he's someone who tells it like it is, so he was an obvious choice as a guest for this season of Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. Plus, I knew that talking with him would give me a window into the complex human being that he is. Over the course of a strikingly frank conversation, he talked about why writing a shitty script is a quicker road to filmmaking success, why he won't be making Monopoly the movie, his revisionist take on Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, the skinny on his sex robot movie, why the apocalypse will not feature anyone who looks like Pedro Pascal, why he wishes he didn't want to make movies, and much, much more. So, let's dive in. Are you somebody who remembers their dreams? If so, do you have a recent dream that you can recall?
Oh god, I mean, I think I've been dreaming of the same fucking thing every day last few months, so there's a film I left unfinished, and somehow we've all gotten back together, and we're all it's never the same film, but it's always like, there's just this one scene, and there's no money or crew, and I haven't prepared, and no, I don't have a script. So that's literally the dream I've been having for about a year now.
Yeah. Is that sort of the filmmaker's version of like the high school dream where like there's an exam and you haven't studied for it, or?
Yeah, I used to have that one. I missed that one because I feel like I never really studied for exams and I could always get A's. So like that's not scary to me. I could like bludge my way through anything at the time. But I feel like if someone forced me to go on a set with no script right now, I still could do something. It's just more like the dream is probably based on the fact that I haven't been on set in so long and don't seem likely to be anytime soon. So just panic essentially.
Yeah. Does it feel like, is it a very neurotic dream?
I think I'm always someone who's in problem-solving, goal-oriented mode, so I don't know that the neurosis probably would come after it, but like in the moment, I tend to push the neuroses for later. You know, there's plenty of it, but usually in the moment, I prioritize what needs to be done and the people around me. I don't like to reveal too much of myself, weirdly. So yeah, at least that side anyway.
So you're kind of calm in the storm?
I wouldn't describe that. Is that no? I'm very nervy, agitated, energized, but it's more like I'm not thinking about myself. Like I forget what I look and sound like. You know, I forget I'm audible or visible. Actually, when I'm in that situation, it's not. And I wouldn't say I'm worried about that. Like essentially, I feel like the film is the director, and we're all kind of serving it. You know, I feel like is the child and that takes priority, I'll think about my feelings or myself later, if at all. Like,
Yeah.
maybe a year later when I'm unemployed again. But yeah, I've had a lot of time to think about that now. So
Do you feel like the skills that you've learned on set about sort of putting this bigger thing first and sort of backgrounding your own feelings or anxieties has helped you offset as well?
Um, I think it used to. I sort of it depends where my mental state is, to be honest. Yeah, there were some situations like, especially if there's a dangerous situation. Actually,
Hmm.
I just had a random flashback, and it wasn't even dangerous to me. It was to someone else who I barely knew, but I didn't want them to get hurt. And it was just like suddenly I did go into director mode, whereby I think people think of director as someone who's in control or whatever, or a puppet master or whatever, which is never my experience. So
Yeah.
it's more like in the middle of the chaos and like being mom and going, "Is everyone okay? Is everyone
Yeah.
okay? How
Yeah.
do I make you okay?" So it's happened. I think in times when it's like high stress or crisis mode, it can kick in. Not always, but yeah, I can see that that's what happens sometimes. But I don't like lying, so I don't want to give off the impression that I'm very good at controlling my neuroses in my day-to-day
Mhm.
life. No, they control me significantly, actually.
Yeah, because I guess there's space for them to poke their heads up and
Yeah, I've been doing nothing for 4 years. Like, usually when I'm doing these interviews, I'm promoting something, whereas I've gone insane. So you've got me in the peak of insanity right now. I've been trying to make films like that whole time. I think I've had about, three that are on the cusp of getting financed and then falling apart repeatedly, and then I've written another three that no one wants to make. So, I've been doing a lot, but it's the equivalent of like banging my head against the wall essentially for about 4 years.
when you're kind of in this semi limbo state of not being on set, do you still have a lot of structure in your day?
I go in phases. I try. Like, I did go through several months where I literally have a grid. So the autismo in me comes out this way. Like, I had a grid, like a self-printed grid of how many hours each day I have to do writing and how many hours I have to do reading, and I know that like that would motivate me to make sure I do it, and then
Hmm.
eat up all the leftover cortisol or whatever, so that I can be calm. That works for a while usually. It worked for a few months. It stopped working a few weeks ago again. I'm about to go on holiday. I'm about to go traveling. That's the other distraction I use. But
Hmm.
no, the issue is that I need a deadline or a goal or something. Otherwise, it's really hard for me to maintain a sense of structure. It's
Yeah.
very easy to get distracted and look for like instant dopamine, like we all do, and fall into bad habits. So yeah, I'm more in the bad habit side at the moment than I am in the structured day.
Is that sort of procrastinating, or what does bad habits look like?
Partly it can get worse than that, but yeah, like when I'm writing something and if I'm in the middle of it and it's sort of like sufficiently developed, it can take over. So that can
Hmm.
structure my day. Or if God knows if I'm directing, there's no chance to think of anything else. If I'm editing, same thing. But like, yeah, no, the problem is now I've written like 20 screenplays, and some of them are, I think, very good. Others have said they're very good as well, and they're still not getting financed or made,
Hmm.
and it's like hard to motivate myself to keep doing it, because it's not like aiming to write well leads to making a film.
Right.
The reality we
Right.
live in. Like, if anything, is the opposite. I have to write, a shitty horror movie, I think,
Hmm.
or a shitty anything. Like, like someone was saying to me, I feel like you should. I feel like you'd be so good at an erotic thriller. I have that idea for you. Can you make an erotic thriller? And that was the idea. Like, just erotic thriller. There was no detail. Like,
Right.
so that that's the world I live in, and I don't know. I'd rather, I think, go back to school and be a social worker or something than make shitty films that make money. So like, yeah, I don't have the motivation to keep my day structured at the moment. So
Yeah.
yeah, bad habits it is.
Yeah. I was talking to another director recently who said exactly the same thing. She was saying she preferred to take a catering job than like get hired to make a movie that she can't put herself in, essentially.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm a very spoiled princess right now. Luckily, financially, I'm in an okay position. Like, we're not well off, but like,
Hmm.
I don't have to pay rent, so our apartment's paid off. So like, that's brought down the cost of the household significantly. My husband's job is steady, and I've got a few savings from the last few films. But yeah, like late last year, it was getting to the point where like the savings was starting to drop, and then suddenly I got like an influx of, oh no, I got a writing grant, so there we go. I got some
Hmm.
motivation, but when I was considering getting other work for money, I wasn't looking at filmmaking. I was looking at retail. At the moment, my currency is more how many years of this life of my life expectancy is something gonna cost, rather than how much money I'm making per hour. Like I don't know how to make a movie without putting all of me in it at the
Hmm.
moment, and to put all of me in it in like uh Monopoly the movie or whatever. It's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
I mean, not that they're chasing me, but like even if they
yeah.
did, like it's not gonna.
Wait, so did you write the erotic thriller?
No, I
No.
don't. I mean, that's not a
Yeah.
premise. Like, and
No,
you know
no,
what? I'd
I
be
know,
down.
but
I have nothing against her. Actually, I have nothing against horror either. I just don't. My
yeah,
brain doesn't work that way. Like,
yeah.
it's not. Yeah. Anyway.
Because do you think of your first film as a horror film? Because I've just seen it described as that, but I personally
Yeah.
did not consider it that.
I think you'd be very unsatisfying to a viewer if you tell them, "I'm gonna show you a horror movie," and you play that. When I first started writing it, I thought of it as a horror movie. When we were pitching it, we were saying supernatural drama because
Hmm.
it's. I mean, it's not scary. Like a horror movie needs
Yeah,
to be scary.
yeah,
There's gore a little bit, obviously, but it's still, I don't know. It's within the horror tradition, generally speaking, and
yeah,
obviously shaped by it, but it's not scary, guys. So
yeah,
I don't know what to say. I mean,
yeah, yeah. Do you remember the first time that you made something that you were proud of? And that could be like a drawing you did, or a tiny little story that you wrote as a kid, or
oh, right, that far back. Yeah, I mean, I remember writing a short story when I was like 9, and I remember it feeling like, oh, it's like something someone else could have written, and that was my standard. At this point in life, like, there was no conception of me or becoming a writer or an artist. Where I come from, that did not happen. And I don't mean the country, I mean the socioeconomic subset. And I only had one friend who read books, who again was the least typical reader. Like he was like a soccer hooligan vibe kid who was super funny. And we would used to hang out a lot in school. And I don't know, at one point I realized, wait, you read books? I would not have expected that.
yeah,
Like I think his dad was literally like a woodcutter kind of thing,
mm,
and like, it's just in that environment, like I was hyper aware, what kind of family leads to culture, what kind doesn't, and I kind of had both halves in my background. And he did it, and at some point, I'm like, "What? You're reading the Diary of Anne Frank?" Okay. Anyway, and then at some point in those months, I randomly wrote a short story. I don't know why, like a fairy tale type of setup, and then I liked it, and then I think I mentioned it to him, and he read it, and he like kept wanting to read it over and over again, which
wow,
was,
that's really cool.
cool. And I don't really even think about that. We've lost touch years ago, but I don't even think about that very much, actually. So yeah, you just brought up childhood memories, but
Yeah,
that can be an early situation. I used to just do like little like nursery rhymes or whatever when I was like 5 or 6. I was a strange kid, but I think I was proud even back then. Being full of myself came very naturally to me from a very early age without anyone encouraging it.
watching your three features, I thought a lot about identity and about sort of like duality and code switching, and you won't be alone. It's so potent in the way that identity is so fluid. Like growing up in Australia as an immigrant and then as a queer kid, like how much code switching were you having to do sort of for survival?
Mm. I think a lot of the time that kind of thing, especially when you're young, you're doing unconsciously, to be
For sure.
honest. I mean, even just it took me till I was like in my 20s that I realized and Australia is different to other places because it was, the society was made in a different pattern, but like a lot of people didn't see me as white, which is to me
Mm,
comical, like
yeah. Yeah.
and it was sort of like in my 20s that I realized that, and it had been happening since I was 12, or various things like I remember like a substitute teacher from Florida randomly overhearing me and a friend talking about how much we would want to go on a road trip through the USA, actually, when I
Mm,
was about 15, let's say. And her going, oh, I wouldn't recommend that for you. Like, I don't think they take kindly to people with Middle Eastern features. And she was well meaning. I don't mean,
yeah,
I
right.
don't want to throw this like elderly lady under the bus, and I don't think what she said is factually incorrect. But no, but I just remember going like, oh, what an ignorant person that she thinks I resemble a Middle Eastern person. And then it was only when I got older I was like, oh wait, no, I really do. Like it's just I was raised in this environment, especially like the small town I come from, the way racism was perpetuated for the most part is like there was a Albanian minority and I was Macedonian, and the
Hmm.
minority in that case was larger population. But they're also actually Caucasian, whiter,
Hmm.
than me even a lot of the time. But they weren't seen as white in a particular way, and because they were mainly Muslim in my town, that was seen as the other. So leaving the country and coming here, I realized my mindset was shaped by that, as in like there was an other and I wasn't it. And it didn't enter my mindset until an embarrassing amount of years later that like people would see me as something else, and also, I'm very similar to like we're all from the same part of the world a little
Right.
bit. So
Yeah.
yeah, when you say I have Middle Eastern features now, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I know. Whereas at the time I was like, wow, how strange of you to think that. So I was so unaware of how much I was an outsider a lot of the time. And I think a lot of the code switching was about seeming sophisticated or educated rather
Hmm.
than, I think it
Hmm.
was mostly unaware class resentment kind of peeking through. Like, it was important to me that people know I read well and speak well and watch good movies at the time more than anything else. So that was it. But I don't know if it was code switching because even in my day to day life, I was irritating to my family with my, yeah.
If you could sort of magically acquire a new skill overnight, what would you want it to be?
Um, Honestly, my whole brain right now is shaped to like how do I make movies, and it's all about like to have a large amount of money at my disposal.
Yeah.
That's it. God, oh, I think to be socially more charming or easy to mix with, actually, since not just now, since age 5, being able to
Oh,
mix with people, right. I find a lot of the time there is no connection between what is going on inside my head and on my
hmm.
face, what is being
Okay.
conveyed. So I love a closer, what do you call it, correlation between those things. But I've given up on it. I haven't figured it. I'm 40 and I haven't figured it out, so I don't think I will anytime soon. But yes, being socially more pleasant in a way that I think I am, but am clearly not.
That's really interesting because we've spoken a couple of times and
Yeah.
it's always felt very comfortable and connected. And so where do you feel like you get into trouble?
Um, uh, the list is too long. I don't know. Like I think in day-to-day life, I come off in a particular way that I don't. I'm always hyper aware of someone. Is asking me a question. I have to not just answer it honestly, but come up with something that is very honest and incisive and of interest to them. Because otherwise, I'm wasting their time.
Hmm.
And I don't know that I think about that so much in day-to-day life. But also being too honest. Is not good in day to
Yeah.
day life, is what I also realized. And I seem to be incapable of controlling it. My personality gets ahead of me before I can do anything about it. But also, actually, I should mention it's easier for me to get along with people from certain cultures than it is. Like, we don't do small talk in the Balkans. You can be very blunt.
Yeah.
But also, I think in most of continental Europe, like, there's no Italian or Spaniard I don't get along with. Like, there is no trouble there. It's purely Anglo-centric cultures where there is a bit of distance between, like, it's important to present a certain way, and there's a bit of distance, and like, stating an opinion is starting a fight. Like, it does feel like there's the small talk layer, and that's where most things happen. Even just to say, like, in Australia, there's a term that is very common, especially around my generation. We're having a DNM, which stands for deep and meaningful, and
Hmm.
it's like what half of the world would just call a conversation, but like
Hmm.
it
Yeah.
goes beyond small talk.
Yeah.
And I don't do small talk. I go straight to like blunt things, because I keep forgetting to control myself. So I think that's what causes problems here. This has been a very useful therapy session. Thank you very much.
Okay.
But yeah.
When you're writing, are you simply following your curiosity? Because, like, from the outside, I think somebody looking at your first three features might not immediately see a ton of commonalities. But do you think about the idea of like building a body of work where there's something cohesive that ties each one to the other.
I definitely, in terms of building a body of work, yes, that is very, like, I'm very driven by that and like leaving behind something, but not in terms of what it should feel or look like or cohesion, because I feel, to me, it's like I'm implanting these feelings that come from my brain and from being around the people I've been around, and then putting them in this, time capsule, essentially, this movie, and then when someone watches it and actually connects to it, those feelings exist in them and live on. So, it's almost like a journal of everything that, the ways I existed. But I don't how that's gonna come about, or like, I never actually think about even the ideology of my films or the message I'm trying to convey. I feel like that needs to come organically. I like to create from a more unconscious part of my brain.
Hmm.
And then, well, I do think about ideology once it's being written and kind of going, does this mean this? For sure. And if it's something that I intellectually disagree with, I'll, take it out. But I don't start with the ideology first. I don't start with the message first. Even just like, I know with You Won't Be Alone, the feminism comes up quite a lot in gender roles. And I don't know, I feel stupid to say that. Like, no, I literally wasn't thinking about it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was, it's literally writing from a place of what do I know? What is my feeling about this? If I was in this situation, what would happen? And like, yeah, I was shaped by this consciousness of like, I was much closer to the girls in my family than the boys, and noticing the treatment they were getting in some ways that just was like blatantly wrong, and it's
Yeah.
not, I had no ideology at the time to process this, but I know that this is how I processed it.
Uh-huh.
And it's only now that I go, of course, that bit of writing was shaped that way. When she talks about love, there's things that, are built from my own marriage, essentially, that like I wasn't thinking about it. And then it's only when I'm watching the movie back, I'm like, oh, fuck, I feel exposed because I don't know, like I wasn't trying to convey something, but it comes
Yeah.
out of you. It's, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I was observing is like in your earlier work, I feel like an internal voice, which comes through in voiceover, is more present, and in your recent work, less so. Is that tied to an interiority that you had as a person growing up, or in the way that you were going through the world?
I definitely think there is that. Like, and also when I wrote You Won't Be Alone, I was living in England, in Bristol, where I knew nobody other than, like, weeks would go by and the only person I'd spoken to was my husband.
Hmm.
So, and I realized I was kind of a migrant for the second time in my life. I knew the language, and so there wasn't that issue. But and it's not like the culture was foreign to me, but I still, like, I didn't have anyone, to
Hmm.
engage with day to day. So I kind of felt like a lot of time was spent in my head. And yeah, so that's maybe what shaped that. But like also, You Won't Be Alone was the sixth screenplay I wrote. Housekeeping was the ninth one. Of an Age was the 13th one.
Wow.
I wrote like You Won't Be Alone in 2015, 16, and then Housekeeping around the same time. Of an Age I wrote in 2020. I've written 12 others in between and five others. Some of them have voiceover, some of them, like, it's not the way the films get made has nothing to do. Like, I will do whatever one someone gives me money for. It's not like I have a strategy. And I certainly, like, especially when I wrote You Won't Be Alone, I was feeling very stupid because it was like not the kind of movie that was makeable for someone like me at the time. Like, I had no festivals or credits or anything, so obscure. And it was an expensive film for a first film, especially by someone unproven or unknown. And it's just like a random confluence of, circumstances that led to that being my first film. And I try to use that as a motivating factor now when I write, in terms of writing something, no matter how insane, but that I feel very connected to, even though it feels unmakeable,
Hmm.
but it is really hard to maintain that. I wrote something recently that I quite like, but my team almost organized an emergency phone call to make sure, Goran, do not send this to anyone, kind of situation. And it wasn't, like, I don't think they thought it was bad writing, but it was just like, this is such an unrealistic, budget swing that
Yeah.
you're people will think you're not a serious person if you're talking
Hmm.
to them about it. I'm like,
Right.
no, I know that. Why did I even send it to you? Like, but
Yeah.
it's it's hard to maintain motivation. And like, they were not wrong by any means. Like, these are very kind,
Yeah.
conscientious
Yeah.
people. But yeah, that's where my life is
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
right now.
What was the last time you had an existential crisis?
An hour ago, like every fucking day this week. Like, there's
Okay.
no, just genuinely, it's unsustainable. My life is unsustainable. Like, I cannot live like this. And it's also like it's been years of being very aware that most of what's wrong genuinely stems from me still insisting on wanting to make films. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you take that away, like if I could find another sense of purpose or occupation that I can handle for more than a few months, most of my problems would go away. Like, my brain has now been shaped by this so much, and I built my life around, art in general, but movies specifically, since I was like 13. So there's no way around it, unfortunately. But I would love to find one. I would love to just not, like, because it's almost like there's something in me that it forces me to keep trying.
Yeah.
And I wish I could get rid of that. Actually, that's the skill set I want. Get rid of the desire to make movies. Like be able to find life shape and meaning in a different way. I would
Mm-hmm.
love that. My family would probably love that too. Oh, they're very supportive. I'm putting them through a lot.
So if you let go of that, then would you still make movies? Like, would you be unburdened by the desire to make them, but be able to make them anyway?
No, especially in the current environment, like, again, is that thing of being aware that writing well is entirely unrelated to getting something made.
Right.
The constant humiliation you have to put yourself through, and the bad faith conversations, how hard it is. No, absolutely not. Like, the other aspect of it, the making movies part that involves the actual creativity or even just the people management of being on set, I'm still very happy to do. But these years in between where, like, you're meant to raise a project and put it together, like, it's so hideous and tedious and waste of energy and just, yeah, no, absolutely not. Like, there's no motivation that could outlast that, especially now. Like, there are moments in my life where, like, I recently put up some of my film's posters in my apartment, and it was just like, even like one of them is like almost right next to my computer where I wrote like Of an Age, like it's right next to the laptop where I typed out Of an Age in my underpants at 2 a.m. when, like,
Yeah.
at a point in my life where nothing was of mine was gonna get made, so it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, it's so surreal that I've made any films. I should really just be grateful about that and shut up and just move on. But yeah, no, I definitely, if there wasn't that sense of, especially with like a couple of the ones I've written, that I'm like, this has to exist outside my head, and then I can die. Like, it's, if I could get rid of that, there's no way I would stay in this field at all.
So you talking about writing of an age in your underpants to 2 in the morning.
Sometimes without underpants. It was a very hot
Okay,
summer, but
sure.
go on.
Yeah. You're versatile. I know you're versatile. Uh,
No comment.
yeah. I'm assuming you're a night person.
I was. It's shifted a bit in my old age. But yeah, usually, like, most of the films were written at night and finished at like 7 a.m. when my husband was getting up to go to work. I'm like, "Hi, I'm going to bed now." So, yeah.
Is that your rhythm? That like that's when things are loosened?
Kind of. Look, it's shifted a bit. Like, I'm very hyper aware of maintaining sleep patterns now and health in general. Just, yeah, for everything to function. I have noticed recently, like, actually, the early part of the day is when I kind of am usually high on caffeine and can overgenerate ideas a bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do remember I used to do this exercise where, like, I would try to write a story every single day for a few days. Like, it can be just like a paragraph long or 2 pages long. It didn't have to be. There was no set rules. It was just like you had to generate an idea and, beginning, middle, and end. And I realized the pattern that worked for me is to force myself to stay up past like 2 a.m. And then usually like a random idea would pop up. Then go to bed once I've got enough of it down, and then spend the rest of the next day writing it,
Mm-hmm.
writing the story. I can kind of develop and tease out things, but the generating part usually it's in those kind of liminal in between states
Right.
of awake and asleep. And usually late at night was better for me. Probably still would be if I tried that. But yeah, I had insomnia when I was 4.
Oh
Like, it
wow.
was kind of, I was a very, like, I always, my parents always struggled with getting me to fall asleep. Like, my mom would say since birth. Like, but so nighttime is kind of, yeah, very generative for me. I think there's a high level of anxiety, or some, I don't know, anxiety is such a fashionable word now. Whatever energy that
Yeah.
my brain drums up at that time. There's a pattern.
When you think back to sort of your early childhood, like what's the image that comes into your head of like if you were to paint a picture for me of what that looked like?
I was just surrounded by people all the time, in a nice way. There was no, like, I was never alone,
Yes.
to reference the title of the film. In a way I wasn't even conscious of. And I really, appreciated and loved. Like once we moved here, I was 12. There was suddenly a lot of times and periods where I was a bit more isolated, and there's parts of that I really loved. The ability to just have myself to myself. I do think it's bad for me because I fall into bad patterns when I'm isolated. But yeah, childhood was being constantly surrounded by people of multiple generations and just everything around me being crowded in a nice way, in a warm way. I used to sleep on the rollout couch in the living room with my brother, and then waking up usually involved like my grandmother was next to me stoking the stove that was in the middle of the living room. This sounds like 19th century Russia. It's like 1987 in Macedonia, in a high-rise apartment block, I should say. And then yeah, but like that was the stove where a lot of, we also had an electric stove in the kitchen, but that was the wood fire stove where that was what was the center to the house. I just now realized, to the home, not the house.
Yeah. Was this in Skopje?
No, Tetovo. It's like I never lived in
right.
the capital. Yeah, it's really funny to this day now. Actually, when I think back, like the capital was always this far away place, and it's only a half-hour drive. But I don't know, it's a different pattern of life. It's hard to describe. We would go like once a year, and it was an event. Whereas even when I was shooting housekeeping, I was shooting it in Skopje, and like a lot of my family is still in Tetovo, and I'm still very close with them. But like because I was so busy, like 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, I wasn't able to go to see them, and I barely got to see them during that 3 month period. But it was always because like, oh, of course I have to go to Tetovo. Like there was no conception of them, even though like they had a lot more free time at that point.
Yeah,
They could have
yeah.
just driven in for half an hour, but
Yeah.
there was always various logistical things that would get in the way, and it's this mindset that like, oh, to go to the capital is an event. Like,
Yeah.
to this day.
Yeah, I fully, like, I grew up in Scotland, and like Edinburgh and Glasgow are the two big cities, but like
Yeah.
it's like there's a force field between them. Like you really have to have intentionality to
Yeah.
go to Glasgow. It's another world to go to Glasgow.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. That's why, I used to commute, way longer than whatever going to the capital was in Tatoa, like all the time. But it's also, life is set up in a particular way in these bigger, richer cities. So it does seem more convenient and doable. So it's just a different mindset entirely.
If you were to divide your life into sort of before and after a particular moment or a particular incident, like what would be that dividing line?
There's probably a few. Well, I mean, migration is the obvious one. I think it's still hard to kind of reconcile that, like, both those parts are in the one life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, my now husband, then boyfriend, we met when I was 18. We were both 18. And I guess that's another one that's a before and after situation. But it blows my mind now to think that I'd only been in this country for 6 years when we met. Like in my head now, that's a recent migrant. Whereas at the time, I know I
Right.
felt like I'd been in Australia for so long in my head. But no, there's a definite difference between up to the age of 12 and after the age of 12.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I was interested as well is how much do you think that the places that we grow up like shape who we are and how we see the world?
I mean, yeah, I still sort of like see all the world's places kind of more of a continuum rather than as separate things. And I'm kind of obsessed with socioeconomics in a way that, because I genuinely think it does shape culture more than almost anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And like being, conceived and growing up first in this sort of poorer, very crowded space to then moving to something that was kind of more middle classy, even though we weren't middle class immediately,
Mm-hmm.
it took several years, but it was still like living in a reality that was much more kind of cushioned and comfortable and insulated. I would say that feeling was suddenly different. And like when I eventually read A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, to me,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, I think she's made way more compelling arguments about feminism in some of her other writing. Whereas I'm reading this book and I'm just like, this is so much about class. Like having a room of one's own, like you don't, like, I didn't even have a fucking bed of my own,
Yeah.
when I was little. And I don't think, if you read literature, that would make me like an exceptional case of charity. But in real life, in the universe, that's 90% of humans, like
Yeah.
it's sort of, to me, that book is so much about how, like, if you don't have access like to money and therefore space, both physical and mental, that it comes as a result, you just don't get to reflect. You don't get to shape an identity. That's the other
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, you need space to form an identity, and a lot of the time in poor situations, you don't have that. So moving here meant like suddenly I had a lot of space. I still didn't have a room of my own until I was like 15, I think. But even just having a room to share with my brother, and also he was a little kid that barely existed in my consciousness, so I almost felt alone. Like
Yeah.
oh, at that age, that kind of changed a lot of how my brain was going through. But for me, that age between 12 and 18 actually is weirdly. I have very few memories from it because I was so absent from my life. Like, because it
Hmm.
felt like in my mindset, everything was about this is just what you get through to get to the end. Like,
Hmm.
the interesting part happens later. And part of the reason I made of an age isn't autobiographical in a traditional sense. Like, it's not me or my family literally, but it was kind of to be present in that time and place in my life from which I was so absent. The fewest memories I have is from between 12 and 18. Even just like I would go visit my family in Macedonia roughly every year or two. I remember those times very vividly, but the bits in between, like I was just sitting at home watching VHSs, like I was living my life through, Isabel Bear and Ingmar Bergman, not really
Yeah.
through my
Yeah.
day-to-day reality.
Yeah. So what was the thing that you were trying to sort of tough it out to get to?
I think I'm such a wanker. I did feel superior to my environment in the sense that, like,
Yeah.
oh, being able to get to a point where I would be surrounded by people I could have a conversation with.
Hmm.
That did not exist, between 12 and 18, even in Macedonia. Eventually, I would go to university and meet people like me. That was my mindset. That one day I would get to that point, and just normality would be like being in a world where there were lots of people I could talk to, which wasn't really the case when I got to university. And then, actually, that's been the other thing. Of my 30s were about realizing how much of that mindset was my brain not being able to belong very easily to any environment, rather than
Mm.
I don't know that Australia was the problem so much as I was maybe the problem,
Right.
essentially.
Yeah. There's that moment in your short film, Would You Look at Her, at the end where she's like on her phone in bed at the end and she's like,
Mm.
her sister's talking to her and she's looking ahead to when she's going to be in university and she's
Yeah.
going to have some people who will value her for who she is and that she will find love. And from what you've said, that feels like a thing that you were going through at that time as well, maybe.
I guess so. Yeah. Again, I wasn't conscious when I was writing it, but yeah. And I think for a character like that, that is a reality. Like she lives in an even more severe, situation than what I did, and I had the luxury of realizing I'm gay in a very, Western OECD country.
Okay.
So for me, like it's even the thing of I do remember being conscious at some point that, like, if somehow my parents found out I was gay, I could always just like run away from home and find some kind of youth shelter. There was something concrete. Weirdly felt like I had options even when I maybe didn't. Whereas for a character like that living in an obscure village in Macedonia, like you don't have options. So, yeah, hoping to leave and be somewhere else and be someone else. I think that's a much more severe version of what maybe my life would have been. But I actually someone else pointed that out that like in all my films, there's a main character who's always like, oh, this isn't home right now, but one day I'll be over there, and that's gonna be where everything's gonna be fine. Like in
Yeah.
Housekeeping, it's Vanessa, and An Age, it's both of them. Then you want me alone, it's Maria. Like there's always like, oh, but when I go over there, everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah. It's like the geographic cure.
And it's usually delusional, but yeah.
Yeah. If you had to leave home suddenly, like, what would you take with you? If you have like 10 minutes.
My husband. It's really
Yeah.
that simple. Yeah. Home is where Maddie and my books are. I mean, the books are no longer that movable. There's too many of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I now just get the sense of home from him, essentially. Like, I hate the apartment I live in, really, but I'm kind of fine with it because he's here.
Hmm.
Like, it's not, nothing else. That's it.
Yeah. It's interesting. The way that you've talked about Melbourne, sometimes like the sprawl, the emptiness, maybe, or like the lack of people, like you sort of being ambivalent about your apartment or, where you live about, it seems like you're also ambivalent about the city that you live in. And that intrigued me, like
Yeah.
why you've stuck it out.
I think there was a point where I realized again I'm the problem more than Alvin is the problem because there is a sense of wherever I move to 3 months later I would probably be complaining about it.
Yeah.
Like it's so why fuck with something that I don't know, like the convenience and comfort and access to healthcare and stuff is, the grown-up me going, maybe let's just stay here. The deal actually was because for a while I was making films overseas, every year that,
Mhm.
when I go overseas, the husband comes with me, so half the year usually was spent outside of Melbourne anyway. And at that point,
Mhm.
like he has a tangible happiness and a life he's built that I don't want to mess with. And ultimately, for all my bitching, like when I'm with him, I'm content,
Yeah.
and as much as I think he probably would be able to find a happiness even if we moved somewhere else, I actually don't think we're convinced that I would anymore.
Right.
So I don't know. Like, I don't speak French, so going to France isn't gonna work out. Like, they're usually not very friendly unless you're very fluent in French. And I London's too cold, New York's too expensive, LA, let's not even start.
Right.
Just
Agreed.
Canada's even colder, and why would I go to like, another Australia and leave this Australia?
Right.
It's just where am I gonna go? Berlin is so cold, like so
Yeah.
cold. And the Balkans I'm too gay for, so that's not gonna work. I've got a 9-day maximum and then I have to leave.
You've kind of finally calibrated it to 9 days, or
Yeah, I think 9 is like, even by 9 I'm usually going crazy. Like as much as like to this day the sense of home I get is from not necessarily the place, but and not even specifically Macedonia. I just sort of, I can be surrounded by Croats or Bosnians, like, and it still feels like the same thing in my head.
hmm
And there's things I understand innately, about people there that I can connect to. So there is like something that still draws me there. But yeah, after 9 days, like it's the real life things of, the bigotry that exists in poorer communities. And not I don't just mean like I get a pass now, being gay in Macedonia because I'm the artist. I don't live there. I'm not really seen as a
hmm
threat. I don't really get harassed much. I'm certainly nowhere near what the local gays do. So that part isn't that much of an issue. But the racism I mentioned earlier between like
hmm
oriented towards Albanians and Roma people is even more so. Like it's hard to be around that, and like I start fights, and I don't want to start fights, but it's hard to
hmm
just be quiet, like. And
Yeah.
the misogyny, the ignorance towards lots of things, is, yeah, really hard to stay quiet through, and I
Yeah. And that
struggle.
stuff is all normalized, seemingly, from what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I end up having to have a lot of arguments, and it's probably best for me to leave at some point.
Yeah. Do you have any tattoos? And if you do, can you sort of tell me the story?
No, I don't.
No.
I'm a good boy. Are you kidding? Like, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I think my dad could handle me being gay, but if I came home with a tattoo, I don't even know why, but he would probably disown me. And I really like.
Yeah.
And I've maybe inherited that, but no, I don't even think I could commit to that in the sense of like, hey, I don't know that it would look okay at the end, and then how is it gonna look as I age? And I'm super self-conscious as it is. They're fine on other people, not on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any, but there's part of me that wants one, but there's probably a bigger part that wants to want one, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Well, again, to go back to my usual pattern of what I've been talking about for an hour, it feels like, but there is a thing here, and I think it's happening in Brooklyn, but I don't spend that much time there to know. But I know in artsy Melbourne, like the fashion is to try to look like a poor person, even though you went to
hmm
private school. Like, so
Sure.
there's people like if you're lathered in tattoos and torn clothing, I now know you grew up rich. Like, so right now to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
I if I got a tattoo, it would mean I belong to those people. Like they'll talk about Palestine for an hour and they don't really know where it is on a map. And it's like it's not that I
hmm
disagree with the things I say, but I'm just like your ignorance is seeping through you so vividly through the tattoos that I'm just like, and the holes in your clothes that I'm just like, oh, I cannot be around you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a the ignorance I complain about in where I grew up is one thing, and then there's a certain kind of rich kid ignorance I'm surrounded by in the arts
hmm
community that, yeah, again, maybe I'm the problem. Like there's a common factor in all these things. But right now, a lot of things that to do with image and look and what is fashionable, and even to the extent that like people will connect a political ideology to you, whether you have tattoos or not, or whether you're wearing
hmm
some kind of clothing. And a lot of the time, they're completely unaware of their the privilege and the insulation that they've grown up with.
hmm Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to be associated with that. Thank you. That's fine.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah. What does the end of the world look like?
Oh, I mean, empty, surely. Yeah, empty.
But if you play forward the tape from where we are now, like what's the
Uh,
path?
I don't think it'll be anything spectacular. I think it'll just be a gradual dying off. You barely notice. It won't be a satisfying narrative. Life is never a satisfying narrative, guys. And like, yeah, yeah, I think it'll just be some kind of attrition that happens that's not cinematic.
Hmm.
Doesn't have, Pedro Pascal in it at all. Like there's not even a role for him. Like it's just not. Weirdly, no
It's not a
one's good
fabulous
looking.
ending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no one's good looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. Are you focused on the future, or are you very much sort of living in the present only?
Well, one of the films I wrote is set 20 years into the future, actually. It does involve a sex robot, but other than that, it's very... So yeah, I spent a bit of time writing this project that I love, and of course, it's not financeable. But that's about all the time I've spent. I don't know. I definitely try not to focus on it anymore because I also think, again, there's a fashion among the people who have a certain amount of tattoos and have holes in their clothes to like fixate on what the future is going to be like based on their worst anxieties. And I'm
Hmm.
like, if you read, literature from 100 to 200 years ago, there was always this subset of society that would only picture the worst, and it was never quite always just the worst that happened. It was not the opposite side either, like, but I just think the imagination is just too limited a lot of the time, and it's very easy to just focus on one aspect and like go into your impulses of like what your mood is and what your nature is. I mean, I'm talking about the future now from an creative standpoint rather than from a living life standpoint, but I think like if you're gonna make a story, it needs to be bigger than yourself, and like you need to be aware of your limitations and your impulses and neuroses, and yeah, it needs to contain you, but it needs to like connect to other people on a reality ideally as well.
Now, of course, I'm fixating on what a fitting final question is.
Ah, good luck.
Yeah. What is your relationship with the universe? Is that
Oh,
pretentious enough
Jesus
to end on?
Christ. I wouldn't call that pretentious. I think that's a good question. I think I don't have an unpretentious answer. What is my relationship to the universe? Well, I'm tiny and trying to convince myself I'm not. But we're all tiny. We're all speck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Barely, not even that. Yeah, I do feel very isolated from it, especially at the moment, and tiny. So yeah, that like
Yeah.
insignificant and trying to fight for some kind of significance. Or imagine it. It's not even like that I need to be I need to convince myself I'm significant in some way so that, that'll be enough. It doesn't I don't need to be actually significant.
I don't know. I think a lot about those screenwriters who like spend their careers writing screenplays that don't get like they get optioned or they get bought but they don't get made, and sort of the
Oh, mine don't
attrition.
even get bored, but okay.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I've had so many conversations with people who sold things to like Amazon and whatever, and a lot of them like aren't even writers. I'm just like, what? How did you? Anyway, yeah, go on.
Yeah. I'm intrigued about the way in which those screenplays, because sounds like there's a lot of them sitting there next to your desk or on your desk that are really good but not yet produced, and sort of how that impedes or connects to your sense of importance in the universe.
All right. Oh, I should also say a lot of them are not good. So there's a reason they're not gonna get made. That's beyond that. Um, but it's sort of like to me, it's not even about importance in the universe. It's hard to think of it in those terms. It's just like leaving something behind. Essentially, it's legacy more than
Hmm.
anything else.
Yeah.
And I don't think all of them need to be made. Like you said, like you mentioned a body of work, and to me, it's like as long as I've left one behind, I think there is an element of contentment to that. I still think it's a bit of a miracle that I've made three films, and that's a reality no one can take away. And if I can make another two, that'd be great. But if I don't, when I complain right now, it's not about life on a macro level and like what will I have achieved to make it feel like it matters. I guess as much as I'm contradicting myself, it's more like on a day-to-day level. It's hard to, like you're saying, do I have a shape to my days? And I don't. And I'm like, I need a sense of purpose and something to motivate me. And if that could be writing, that would be great. And it's hard to keep motivated when you're writing things that you know are not going to get made. So that it's about like it's more about my day to day right now rather than like the legacy sense or mattering to the universe. That's where my brain is at. It's hard to even think. I think actually now, if I think in a more cosmic scale, I'm calmer, because I'm like, oh fuck it, like no one matters anyway, and I've tried my best and I've made a few films, and like, I don't know, as long as my husband is alive for a few more years than I am, it's enough maybe. So there's a sense of contentment that way. Maybe that's what I should do, focus on the macro rather than the micro. I'm incapable of it, but I should try.
Well, that sounds great. And I have to say, I think you've made 3 exceptional films, and I'm very grateful to have had this time to chat with you. And yeah, really appreciate you sharing a little sort of insight into your mind and how it works.
Maybe oversharing a little bit. But yeah, no, thank you. It's been a while since I've had a conversation like this. So, and I do forget I've made films quite often. So thank you for your reminder, and also that you like them. That's remarkable. Like, anytime I hear of anyone outside of my family circle who like knows my films exist, much less likes them, it's actually kind of remarkable. So yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we nailed it. Yep, totally nailed it. Thanks so much to Goran Stolevski for talking with me, and thanks to you for listening. You Won't Be Alone, Of An Age, and Housekeeping for Beginners are all available to stream. Watch them, luxuriate in them, tell your friends about them. They are special films. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the theme music is by The Range. Nobody's Ever Asked Me That now has a Substack, so head to nobody'sever-asked-me-that.substack.com to check out all of our past episodes, plus subscribe to get access to exclusive audio and video content. Next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That, my guest is comedian turned writer-director John Early.
Wait, there's not a single leftover letter?
No. It is a truly perfect anagram.
I am. Oh my god. I'm in shock. Thank you so much for telling me that.
Yeah, I figured if there's nothing else that you can take away from today, there's that.
Yeah.
To hear exactly what mysterious thing we're talking about, and it's well worth it. Join me next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That.